Hello, JDs and gentlemen. Today we're going to be talking about a brief history of women's involvement in sports and athletics. So we're getting into this just in time for Women's History Month. Hopefully it's well known to most people that there were a lot of women that paved the way for modern women's sports. There were a lot of things that were withheld from women and only given to them when they fought hard enough for them, and participating in athletics is one of those things. And to me personally, this topic is especially important just because I wouldn't be able to lift and I wouldn't be able to run, and I could do it in my own time, but it would be significantly harder if not for the work that people before me have done. So throughout history, a lot of things have been denied to women, specifically because men at that time, and even some men now, don't understand their own bodies, let alone a woman. So some men thought that athletics were a threat to a high-value woman's fertility, which meant that their servants could do all the hard work, but they couldn't. Medical authorities were acting under the belief that women were controlled by their reproductive systems, and too much work or exertion would render them infertile. The truth of that matter is that people were taught to be afraid of anything different. There was no level of true understanding that convinced them. But it was the law. Men were also allowed to beat their wives and children. The law is not the determining factor in what is morally correct. By that same distinction, an upstanding individual would find it okay to do deplorable things so long as there were no written laws on the topic. The law acts as a guideline, but people should not need the threat of punishment to not do bad things. And the people who will do bad things will do them regardless of what punishment is set. So now I'm going to get into a short timeline of influential moments in women's sports history. In 1896, the first intercollegiate basketball game happened. 3 years later, both of the colleges that were involved banned women's basketball from intercollegiate competition. 1972, Title IX. 1974, a year after Billie Jean King won the Battle of the Sexes, the Women's Sports Foundation is born. 1984, women are allowed to run the Olympic marathon finally. Joan Benoit wins gold for the United States. 1991, Women's First World Cup. 1996, basketball and women's soccer are added to the Olympics. Ice hockey is added the following Winter Games. 1996, the American Basketball League and the Women's National Basketball Association are formed. ABL's members are later absorbed by the WNBA. 2012, 4,847 women compete in London Olympics. One source claimed that women were not allowed to compete in the Olympics until 1920. Another states that women haven't existed in the Olympics since 1900. Whatever the case is, it was not until the 2012 Summer Olympics that all sports featured women, and all national Olympic committees sent women to the games. Regardless of what roads it took to development, the fact that it was so recently is upsetting. Women have fought to take up the same amount of space as men since the beginning of time, and yet they're still viewed as less valuable. The All-American Girls Baseball League was started in 1943 but was inevitably canceled due to the war. The Carnegie Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching produced its 1929 report, American College Athletics, that there should be a way to give athletics back to the boys. Again, from a bit back, people fought against women in sports with a venom. The belief that women are somehow less capable because of the differences in the way that each body is built is ridiculous. Women have had a level of perseverance that is unrivaled. That power is only stronger through intersectionality. Women of color have faced even more discrimination in joining and playing sports. Title IX was passed in 1972. Prior to this, the NCAA had shown no indication of allowing participation from women. Along with this, after Title IX was passed, the NCAA tried to argue a different interpretation of the meaning, and many others fought against the progress of women in sports over the next 6 years. In 1973, the NCAA removed regulation that kept women out of attending men's events to avoid charges of sex discrimination. Sometime between 1981 and 1982, women's championships finally became a part of the NCAA program. It seemed most individuals still had intentions to keep women out of sports. Looking back, it seems foolish, but there are still some of the same arguments today. It doesn't matter, nor does it hurt anyone, if any person wants to play a sport. No matter their size, shape, color, gender, sexuality, every person should be allowed the same opportunities to success. The fact that this has continued to be a discussion is embarrassing. Next, I'm going to list some influential women in sports. Forgive me if I do not pronounce some of their names correctly. Babe Didrikson Zacharias competed in the 1938 Los Angeles Open, the first woman to play in a PGA event. Toni Stone was the first woman to play big league professional baseball. Billie Jean King had a landmark moment defeating a male athlete in tennis. They called it the Battle of the Sexes. Victoria Roche was the first woman to reach the World Series. Nancy Lieberman was the first woman in men's pro league after she had already made the U.S. Olympic team years prior. Florence Griffith Joyner still holds the women's world record in 100 and 200 meters that she put up in 1988. Manon Rheaume was the first woman to appear in an NHL preseason game. Sarah Attar was the first woman from Saudi Arabia to compete in track and field at the Olympics. Ronda Rousey left an incredible mark and was the first woman to appear in the UFC Hall of Fame. Danica Patrick was a hell of a driver. Serena Williams is perhaps one of the most influential names in sports. Sabrina Ionescu was the first basketball player to get 2,000 points, 1,000 rebounds, and 1,000 assists in her career. The first basketball player, men and women aside. That's impressive. And that doesn't even scratch the surface of all the women who have paved the way for each individual in sports. These are some of the most influential moments and names, but there were so many names that fought for this moment that are not remembered. We should take time to remember and feel grateful for all those that did the hard work before us. There is hard work to do now and likely always will be, but the hope is that it is made just a little bit easier and better for the women that come after us. Thank you for watching. Bye!